Long Monday is saving ground, Flown comes wide, and right there too, Beautiful Star and Plum Ali, and they're into the stretch. And it is Sunshine City on the inside trying to hold on to this lead. Dream Quest is right up alongside. Here's Cecile's Chapter. Here's Plum Ali to the outside, and farther out it's Flown. Plum Ali is taking the lead. Flown is finishing fast on the outside. It is Plum Ali and Tyler Gaffalione in front, coming down to the line, and Plum Ali wins the Mint Juvenile Fillies.
Welcome back to another edition of the Racing Rundown here on YouTube. I'm Eric DeCoster. In this edition, we will be previewing the Grade 1 Darley Alcibiades on opening day of this Keeneland Fall Meet. It goes a mile and a 16th on their dirt course for a $350,000 purse. Some really nice 2-year-old fillies coming up in this race. 7 in total, all 7 expected to run. A lot of different backgrounds here, makes for a fun race. Really wide open, at least at the top end of it, which it makes it very fun. I think it's going to be a fun race. Always has an impact somehow on the Breeders' Cup, and it's definitely going to, not even just for the Breeders' Cup, but heading into next year, we're gonna see some of these fillies certainly trying to make an impact on the Oaks Trail. So, wasting no more time, let's get right into it, starting with the one Thoughtfully. I imagine she'll be favored, if not a very close second choice behind some of the other big contenders in here. Thoughtfully, 2 for 2 lifetime, both wins by open lengths, a total of 13 3/4. The real big thing about this filly is she is making her 2-turn debut here. Now, we have a couple in here that have not necessarily run 2 turns, but they've ran extended distances. We'll talk about those obviously later. Thoughtfully, her maximum distance to this point is 6.5 furlongs. That's when she took out the Adirondack in her last start, beating a pretty decent field in there. Make Mischief, the runner-up, did ship out to California for last weekend's Chandelier. Didn't run great there, but nevertheless, she's been facing some horses that are stakes competitors, stakes veterans, and she handled them very well. Now she stretches out. I know I've mentioned that a couple of times, but pedigree-wise, she fits the bill, being by Tappet out of Seeking the Gold mare, so distance through and through, and she's been working very solidly. Another thing, she's also coming off a bit of a layoff, hasn't ran since mid-August, so about a month and a half there. I don't worry about it too much. Being from Steve Asmussen's barn, he always has them ready to go. It's really just a question of how is she going to run against the toughest group she's ever faced at a newer distance from an inside post. And I'm not a huge fan of Keeneland, being down on the rail in these 2-turn dirt races. Not always the worst thing, especially because this is not the biggest field in the world, but it certainly has an impact in my opinion, especially considering she's probably going to be one of those showing speed just coming out of the sprint race where she's already been kind of forwardly placed. You'd naturally expect her to be right up there fighting for good early position. But at the same time, I know I've kind of focused mainly on some things I don't like about her, but she's been very good, 2 very nice wins. She's going to like stretching out. There's no doubt about it. Now it's just a question, like I said, if she can beat some of these fillies, some that are stakes competitors, some of that have already taken stakes out or graded stakes placed. It'll be very interesting. The layoff is another thing that does concern me a bit, but not without a chance, that's for sure. The 2 is Travel Column. She is another one who has a lot of early backing here. It's interesting. The top 4 in this race are all within about 2 points on the odds board. Your morning line favorite is Crazy Beautiful at 5-2. Then you have 3-1 on Thoughtfully, 3-1 Simply Ravishing. Then you have 7-2 on this filly Travel Column, and then you go all the way to 9-2 on Gramercy, the 6. I really think those first horses I mentioned, minus Gramercy, all could at one point be favored and could all go off favored in this race. Travel Column is 7-2. I'd love that price on her. Very visually impressive win first time out. And these Frosted being a first crop sire, we're getting to know his offspring like we do every year with every single first crop sire. One thing I'm noticing, time and distance is the biggest benefit to these Frosted babies. Naturally, coming from the Tappet line, you could only expect it. And she won 6 furlongs first time out. And that's impressive. We haven't seen too many offspring of Frosted win first time out, and now she gets more distance, which even on the dam side of the pedigree is going to be great for her. She's gonna love that. So I really do think she has a good chance. And then we obviously go to that win. That was a very nice win in a field of 12 on Derby weekend, going 6 furlongs. Went very quick up front, 44-2 for a half mile for a bunch of 2-year-olds fillies. That's pretty quick, and the fact she was able to sustain that and then finish as well as she did gives me a lot of confidence. Not to mention the Brad Cox barn is in extremely good form. He's going to be firing on all cylinders in Kentucky at Keeneland and up at Pimlico in Maryland. So it could be a huge weekend for Brad Cox. Would not be surprised to see this filly join in, working very solidly, posted a very good final work coming into this race. And Florent Giroux is aboard as well. Florent Giroux, another guy who's primed for a huge weekend, should all go well. I certainly don't think she's without a chance in this race. I think, if anything, I think she has almost a better chance purely on recency than the filly we've already talked about thoughtfully. The 3, Olivia of the Desert, the first of 3 for Kenny McPeek in this race, this one being the weakest. Broker Maiden at Ellis Park going a mile, so distance is not going to be her issue. Then switched back to the turf. She debuted on the turf, finished 4th. Broker Maiden under start number 3 on the turf. She was 3rd in the juvenile fillies race at Kentucky Downs, behind Plum Ali, who's one of the early favorites for the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies turf on the American side of things. And she ran a good third her. Finished 3rd in that spot, beaten 3 lengths. Dirt pedigree mostly, and I mean, we already know she likes it because she's won over it before, so that's really not a huge concern for me. It's just a question of, can she beat this group? And I don't really know. I think she's going to be better on the dirt, but at the same time, a race probably doesn't set up too well for her. Not saying it doesn't at all, but it could be better. I won't lie in that aspect. And then, looking at some other factors, just these other horses, she's certainly not proven to be the best at what she does, and even that field she beat in that maiden race, nobody's really come back to do much of anything. So I just have my doubts about her. She's going to relish the extra 16th of a mile she gets, but I think that's really one of the only positives I get here. As a long shot, there isn't, to be fair, there's not going to be tons of value really anywhere you look. If you're in this is your best look outside of the favorites, but I have a hard time believing any of those top 4 in this race have a chance at not winning this. The 4 is Crazy Beautiful, morning line favorite. Wouldn't be surprised to see her go off favorite, or like I mentioned, Thoughtfully, Travel Column, Simply Ravishing, all have their chance there. I think it could go any which way. But for Crazy Beautiful, she certainly comes in with the strongest resume. Started her career off with 2 very nice wins, won the debutante at Ellis Park very impressively with a trouble trip. Last time out, Pocahontas, grade 3 at Churchill Downs, she was second beaten 2 lengths, but she was probably the best horse in the race. She just had a disastrous trip, ran into so much trouble, but when she got in the clear, she finished very well, only beaten 2 lengths behind Girl Daddy, who herself is very talented. Had some good maintenance works up to this, nothing spectacular. You don't expect a ton from the Kenny McPeek barn on the work tab in general, so I think she has every chance in the world here. Biggest thing is the pace. That's always something I'm worried about in any race is how can horses either close into this, or how can horses withstand early speed. She's not going to have a ton to close into. I think it's a mixed bag here. You have 3 fillies we'll get towards this. We'll go deeper into this towards the end of this, obviously, like we always do. But I think that she is one that could potentially be hindered by the pace, not to mention closing at Keeneland is not always the easiest thing to do unless you have a ridiculously fast early pace in front of you. So that's my biggest knock. But I think on talent, she is probably the best in this field. The 5 Extrema 4, Keith DeSormo, being ridden by James Graham for the 3rd straight race. Broker Maiden at Golden Gate, come to Kentucky for her last 2, and she's been 4th in both the debutante at Kentucky Downs and the Pocahontas. Well beaten in the Pocahontas, ran a decent race in the debutante. She's just proven to be outmatched in both those races, and now she faces tougher. She's already been beaten by Crazy Beautiful in both of those efforts, and then she adds on to the fire with a couple other good fillies. So she hasn't proven much to me. She may be one who runs well, runs a very flat 4th or 5th, but I have a hard time believing, nothing on paper at least indicates she's going to take a big step from what she's already shown, I should say, and translate that to a victory this Friday. The 6 Gramercy, 9-2 morning line. Don't really get it. Not a lot on paper is suggesting a big race for her. She closed very well to break her maiden at first asking on the Tapeta at Arlington. Won by 2 lengths on that day from well off the pace. And that was her only effort. That was her only race. Now, pedigree-wise, dirt's going to be great for her. Working fine on any dirt surface, typical for Owen Hardy, but I don't know how she's going to translate that. We already saw one horse from an Arlington maiden race in the American Pharoah last week who had a very nice maiden win. Notable exception in that American Pharoah for Calumet Farm and Jack Sisterson. Took a lot of money. He didn't break very well, so that's an excuse you can make. But otherwise, he seemed very outmatched by a group that wasn't even that tough. And Gramercy's facing tough fillies this time around. So I'm failing to see it. You get Joel Rosario. That's probably your biggest benefit there. Rosario can ride Keeneland as well as any great rider out there. So it does have that going for her. But I just think there's a couple factors. She didn't beat a very strong group in the process. Eye test passed, probably, but I just don't see how she matches up with this group. And the 7 is Simply Ravishing, the last of the Kenny McPeak trio, 2 for 2 lifetime. Broke her maiden going 2 turns on the grass at Saratoga, then won the off-the-turf PG Johnson by 6.5 last time out. That was a nice win. Visually, extremely impressive. Beat nobody, truly. I mean, the runner-up Cone Lima just lost a race down at Gulfstream against some weaker fillies. Union Gables, who was third, broke her maiden nicely. We'll kind of find more out about her this weekend, but she didn't beat Strong. But visually, like I said, passed the eye test, and she's going to be able to set a really good stock and trip on the outside of Thoughtfully and Travel Column, and that's going to be very good for her. Talent-wise, I think she's right up there for sure. I don't think she's without a chance to run a huge race here. She's probably the most unproven of the favorites, I'd say. I don't think I'm wrong in saying that. Crazy Beautiful, Thoughtfully, both, graded stakes performers, at least, great Crazy Beautiful is placed. And Travel Column might be there with her, but I think she did beat a tougher group in her maiden win than what Simply Ravishing beat in that PG Johnson or that maiden race. Maybe not the PG Johnson. That wasn't a horrible group, but it wasn't great. So I think for that reason, she'll probably take a little less money than those top 2 that I've mentioned, Thoughtfully and Crazy Beautiful. So she's going to provide some tremendous value for anybody that likes her. Pace setup, I always, reference it throughout. I expect the 2 inside to be the pace setters, probably Travel Column on top of Thoughtfully, as they both come out of really quick sprint races. So 2-1 early on with Simply Ravishing probably just sitting right off them, flanking them to sitting a good, like I said, stalking trip. She's going to have things go her own way. Then you have a little bit of a break. Both Gramercy and Extrema have been coming from mid-pack, and then your 2 deep closers come from the Kenny McPeak barn, the 3 Olivia of the Desert, and the 4 Crazy Beautiful. At the end of the day, I do end up on Travel Column here. Brad Cox, historically very good with these young fillies. We saw him win this race last year with British Idiom, out of a very nice maiden win. And I really just think she's going to set a very nice trip. Very impressed with her maiden win. I love that. Seems like perfect timing leading up to this. Great works on top of that. That last work was superb. And I think that the pedigree-wise, like I said, Frosted, time and distance, she's getting both. So Travel Column on top, and then I'm going to go 2 Kenny McPeaks. I'm going to go the shorter price, Crazy Beautiful, over Simply Ravishing. Wouldn't be surprised if like I said, I think the best long shot look here would be Olivia of the Desert to hit the board, but realistically, I have a hard time believing that top 4 that I've consistently mentioned not running at least 1, 2, 3, 4. I think they are all primed to run big races. At the end of the day, though, we're here to inform. We're not, a big handicapping show. We love to pick. That's part of the game, but at the end of the day, we just want to help you find that angle to help you pick that winner. So I hope I was able to do that. Stay tuned for tons of coverage this weekend. We already have our Preakness preview out, and we have tons more coming in terms of Breeders' Cup prep coverage this weekend, next weekend, and then all the way up leading to that big weekend in November. So we'll see you next time here on the Racing Rundown.
Behind them, Thoughtfully, and down on the inside, Lilac Lace 46 flat for the half, and they're heading to the 8th pole, and Ava's Grace is trying to fend off Thoughtfully, who kicks it into high gear. And Thoughtfully has run right by in a sparkling performance. Thoughtfully and Ricardo Santana Jr., and she's bred to run all day long. They report home 4 in front.